Good afternoon. Today we're here at the New York Marble Cemetery on 2nd Avenue in New York City. And we're joined by Sophie Truslow. She's a trustee here at the cemetery. Also with us are former Mayor Phil White. He's a member of the Historical Committee, as well as Alice White, another member of the Historical Committee. And what we would like to do is just take a few minutes here today to go and talk about the history of the cemetery. Many of you may not know, but the cemetery is primarily made of Tuckahoe white marble, and it's one of only 2 marble cemeteries in Manhattan. And what we're going to do is ask Sophie to give us a little history about the cemetery, so that we can record it with all of our other historical information that the committee has been working so diligently on. So I think what we'll do, Sophie, is maybe begin with you and former Mayor White, and just open up a discussion here.
Pleasure.
Yeah, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure. I love this place, and the more people understand it and know it, the better. Well, form, I suppose, comes first. We are sitting or standing on a 1-story building on the sod roof, and underneath us are 156 vaults in which well over 2,000 people are buried, many of them from children from the 19th century. Most of the burials happened between 1830 and roughly 1860, 1870. The last burial was in 1937. And there have been none since then. And the cemetery is the only form of cemetery like this that I've been able to find in the world. It's made of the walls, the upper walls and the vaults and the tablets are all Tuckahoe marble, except for where they have some nice brick infill. Oh, I just lost my train of thought, but it doesn't matter. You'll patch me together later.
I was reading that over the years there's been some groups interested in, taking this piece of land over and converting
absolutely. Jacob Riis wanted it, the great reformer in the late 19th century, early 20th century, wanted it for a playground for children. Um, I expect that Moses simply wanted to take it away from the wasps. I don't think Trump has thought about it. But basically, it's been protected by 2 or 3 things. One, its position. It's in the backyards. It can't really be built on. By zoning law, it can't be built on, except for way at the very far end, which unfortunately means that we also can't get money for a transfer of development rights. But that's another issue. It's also saved by its form of ownership, because each of the vaults is owned separately by all of the descendants of the original owners. And you have to have agreement of all of them, which is virtually impossible. They tried in 1905 to arrange to transfer it, because at that point the Lower East Side was very scary to the descendants of the original owners. It was in 1820, it was very fashionable, but by 1907 or so, it was simply a terrifying place of crime and immigrant groups, for at least for the original owners or their families. But at in the last analysis, the descendants who were by then the owners, wouldn't agree, because it was they revered the original owners quite rightly, and they wouldn't agree to it. And then the other thing that saved it was the fact it's not taxed. And so it just stood here, and it was forgotten, literally. It's extraordinary. In the middle of New York, it was forgotten, completely forgotten. And because I grew up here, and if we'd known, I think we would have done something about it. Grandmother and grandfather probably knew, but, you know, that's a long time ago. Yeah.
And I know that you're trying to raise some funds and some money to restore some of the stonework. I know that it's getting...
The entire wall desperately needs. I hope you're going to get a picture of this. This caved in this summer. The entire wall, this right up here has been done, and it's another portion down there. And so a lot of work was done in the last 3 or 4 years. But I hope you don't mind me walking around. But here, for instance, and up there, it's riddled, because at some point somebody took off all the coping stones, and water got into the center of the wall. Right. So basically you have 2 walls attached, semi-attached on either side. So, I mean, at any time, any of these walls could go over. And this we did this last spring, where you can see the support there. This we didn't even know was going to happen. Now, well, right about 4 weeks before it did, I sent a picture around to the other trustees saying, this is a bulge. Right. This is really a bulge. Because that's what happened over here. Right. That's exactly how that happened. So it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, the danger is if you don't, you know, do your repairs here, that you could potentially, you know, lose the walls over the years to come.
The end wall was gone. The thing that you could rebuild a wall. These have been rebuilt, and they're nice fieldstone walls. The thing that would be so exciting to manage to hold on to, because there's very few places it exists, is Greek Revival stonework. This is Greek Revival work. The Greek Revival, this cemetery talks to the people in the early 19th century, when the country was still a republic. It wasn't really a democracy. These people believed in themselves enough that this stone says Benjamin Bailey, Vault 22. It doesn't say the Bailey family. These people regarded themselves basically as iconic figures. They were empire builders. You see it in the structure also of the brownstones. If you see a long row of brownstones, all held together by a matching cornice across it, they regarded themselves as basically an army. And they were marching west. You know, it was also the period of Manifest Destiny and Western expansion, or the beginning of it. And they were going to control the wilderness by reason and by the grid. And that's what this reflects. Long, strong horizontals. If you look at this place, you can see that in essence it's a temple. The columns, the tablets are the columns, the placing of the stones, this is my theory. The placing of the stones regularly, we're here, especially here. Can you see it? Yeah. They're the same spacing as stairs into his temple.
Right.
So this is Greek revival, and you don't find much of it. And this is a form of, this stonework over here celebrates wilderness, because by now, and up here, it celebrates randomness and chaos. We're not worried about the wilderness now. We're worried more about ourselves than we are about the wilderness. But then, they weren't scared of the wilderness anymore, really. The wilderness could kill, it still could kill, but they didn't think that the devil lived in it, which they did in the 17th century and the 18th century. But by then, they were going to claim it, and they were going to order it. And that's what so this, if we can save the stone bond, that's what we really want, because you could build another wall. The expense isn't pulling down a wall and building a wall. The expense is keeping this wall,
Right.
which is Tuckahoe marble from 1830.
Okay. I know that Mayor White has some questions about the actual vault and where they're...
By all means. Let me pick up my stuff here.
I'll just hand this over to you.
Sophia, first I want to thank you for taking time out on your busy schedule, your busy law practice.
My pleasure.
To give us a little history of the area. Why don't we run through an actual burial here? We have someone, some family has a member that has passed away. They now come into this cemetery. How do we get to bury them?
Okay. The way the cemetery is constructed is they are not individual burials. A burying ground has individual, burying ground is one person, one hole, or the other way around, really. But cemetery comes from the Greek for sleeping chamber, and cemeteries are vaults that are considered dry burials, which was part of the issue. The vaults are underneath us. You and I are sitting right on the boundary between Vault 20 and Vault 20, Vault 20, 20 and 22, roughly. And the way it works is that there are 6 vaults across, which is really 3 pairs. You enter, but you have pictures of these. You enter through, this is a cross section of the vault, and there's a view from above. And in the center between each pair of vaults, there's an entry shaft, which you find the same way you do a septic tank. You know where it is.
You have the...
I'll make you pictures of that. You find it, and you dig down until you find the slab that is sitting on the top of the entrance shaft to keep it dry. And then you hoist the slab out of the way, and there's a door. There are 2 doors, one on either side of the entry shaft, which both open in or out, I guess. And that means they're okay under the building code, even. And one has been opened for the first time. The big slate slabs with bronze hardware. One's been opened for the first time in probably 100 years, and it opened just beautifully, without any argument whatsoever, which is sort of a faint miracle.
Now, if someone that was not familiar with this cemetery came in here and they'd look at the slabs that are in the wall, they would probably assume that the burial place was behind that slab.
That's what they think, but it's not. It's underneath us, and you couldn't fit very much. There's been talk about making a columbarium, which is where you put ashes in the wall. But it seems to me there's no reason why you can't put ashes in a vault. You know?
How many vaults do they have here, Sylvia?
156.
156?
Yep.
How did you become interested in serving here as a trustee?
Well, I was at Columbia. I've been a lawyer for 20 years, but I was at Columbia doing a master's program in historic preservation. And actually with a group and we were all working on New York of just this period. But Anne Brown, who had come to find a vault that she knew about. I'm sorry, let me back up for a second. The cemetery was lost for decades and decades, and one family somehow became the designated trustee. And they moved out of New York to Philadelphia, and then up to Vermont. At least one of them did, Peter, who has been the president of the board for a long time, and for a while was the board. And they did their best to take care of it, but they didn't know how to find anybody. The other thing, third thing that saved it was the web. Because suddenly genealogical research became not difficult. Not easy, but not difficult.
Had you always known that you had relatives here?
No, no, no. We didn't know about this at all. And as I said, maybe my grandparents did, but Mom never talked about it. And certainly we kids didn't know about it. Friends of mine from where I went to school who are also owners here, have had the same response. That if they'd known, they would have done something. I wish we had found out. I wish it had been rediscovered 20 years earlier, because this piece of the wall came down 10 years ago.
Well, it was lucky then that you did this historic study.
That's right, that's right. But the real miracle workers here are Peter LeQueer, who was a trustee for so long, and his family, and Anne Brown, who's done the research. And her husband runs the website that is so excellent.
What's the website?
Marblecemetery.org. Excellent. And the other miracle here is that the original trustees were a very snarly bunch, and they wouldn't let anything be changed. And this place was built in 1830, and probably one thing I should say briefly is it was a response also to the cholera epidemics and the yellow fever epidemics that were sweeping New York. And this is not a bad thing to see. This is 14th Street. And this you'll get a picture of. This is from Our Town, a book of pictures of New York over the decades, centuries, put together by the Museum of the City of New York. This is 14th Street, in 1826, 4 years before it was built. So the cemetery is in one of these fields. And so when it was built, it was on somebody's farm, and they carefully and deliberately bought, because it was cheaper, the center of what would be a block. And and they were given permission to put up a cemetery. The city was in the process of banning all earthen burials within the city, which was, of course, at that point, Manhattan only. And they permitted them to build a cemetery, again on the theory it was a dry burial, because they thought that they knew there was a connection between clean water, clean air, and health. They didn't know what it was. And they thought that if you buried somebody who was sick, the bad humors or whatever, they didn't know about germs, they didn't know about microbes, but whatever it was that made them sick would leach into the ground soil. It's not true, but it was a good try.
Well, we became interested in this when one of the trustees from Virginia stopped in Village Hall and wanted to learn a little bit about Tuckahoe marble. Anne Brown?
Anne Brown, excellent Anne Brown.
And my wife, who is the historian for, not actually the historian, but the history committee, am I saying it correctly? Put together a little book. Can I borrow that a second? And why don't you tell the audience a little bit about how much you've collected in the way of historic material?
Well, I put this book together because Anne Brown had left me some material, and then I went on the internet and I got all of this written material.
Oh, so you printed all this stuff from the website? Wonderful.
Yes, from the website, and I was just fascinated with it. My ancestors are buried up in Walton, New York. And
wonderful.
yes,
I love Walton.
My great-grandmother was married there, and so,
wow,
you know, the history of cemeteries, the cemetery there is in a cornfield still, and if you don't know where to find it, you never find it. So when I heard about this, I said, oh, this would be wonderful to put in our archives. So I'm very excited about your coming here and sharing all of this with us.
And what whet her appetite, of course, was the fact that we just had gotten back from the City of the Dead, New Orleans.
Oh, that's a wonderful place. Very different cemetery. This is marvelous. I've been putting together something I call the Marble Cemetery Reader, which is, oh dear, you got to edit this out. I hope that hasn't been over the whole time. Typical. But a Marble Cemetery Reader, which is all of the different articles written from way back when, as far as I can find them. So there's Anne, wonderful Anne. Yes. There's one recently that I don't have, but I didn't bring it because it's all in little pieces now. But I can get it to you, or I can send you the index of it. That's probably easier. Yeah.
We have a list of names of everyone
that's
buried here.
That's right.
it started coming through our computer. It seemed like there was no end to it.
That's
We didn't realize there was so many
absolutely.
buried here.
I was
That's right.
getting a little
This
nervous.
is
I thought it was going to be forever.
this is Anne's book. This is the
Oh.
interments, and you can see I've been. You can buy it, but since it's always being updated, I just printed. She sent it to me on a CD-ROM, and so then I printed it and to work from it.
Well, whatever
But-
you can share with
'cause
us,
it's
we'll keep it as
tons of-
a permanent part of our
Oh yeah,
Tuckahoe
that's not a
history.
problem. I'm
Photos or articles.
Yeah, that's not a problem. I will send you as quickly as I can put it together, or email you, which is probably easier. What I have so far of the index, table of contents, which basically has lists a lot of what the articles are.
Okay, great.
But it's a work in process.
Okay,
You
no
know.
rush.
Well,
Yeah.
we'd like to invite you to Tuckahoe and see
Oh,
what
I'd
we
love
have
to.
there.
I'd love
and,
to.
bring some photos, and we'll quickly reproduce them and give them back to you.
Yeah, that's not a problem. Mostly, a lot of this is old newspaper articles.
Mhm.
You know, the Times has a whole series. The place, it's very interesting. The dark days for the cemetery, 1907, 1905, something like that. There's one article that was written up in the Times first, and it talked about a murder in one of these buildings here. And it said decisively that the murderer had not come in through the window, had not come in, that the police had investigated the windowsill, and they had not come in from the cemetery. Nonetheless, the Washington Post picked it up and talked at length about how the murderer crept through the dark cemetery and then in. So this place became almost a set of crime. It became a romantic backdrop.
A notorious,
You know, exactly. Notorious is exactly the right word. So that was part of what has maimed it, and would almost have killed it.
Sophie,
But,
we'd like to
yep.
help you too. I'm sure there's somebody out in our listening audience that would probably like to contribute.
Oh, we will
how
think you're
could they
wonderful.
do that?
They can go online to our website, marblecemetery.org, and Brown, the treasurer's coordinates are there, and we will love you forever.
Well, this is
It would
part
be
of our
wonderful.
This is
It would
part
be
of our
wonderful.
Tuckahoe history, and we
Yeah.
certainly want to see it preserved. And whatever we could do in helping you get
Well, it
grants or
would be
getting
wonderful.
contributions,
It would be wonderful.
we'll
It would be
certainly
wonderful.
work with you.
Yep. As you can see, it needs it, and it's worthy. It is an extraordinary moment in our history. There's one. Can I bibble about one arcane
Sure.
architectural detail, which is that this was built in 1830. You're going to go see the other marble cemetery, which was, I think, built with Tuckahoe marble also. And you can see that's on Second. It's the New York City Marble Cemetery. When they finished, the people who subscribed for these vaults were all friends, and this was the only one like it. And there were too many people. There were too many people, so they built another one, just down in the next block. And remember, they were all fields at that point.
Well,
So they, but wait a minute,
Yeah,
I'm
go ahead.
sorry.
No, go ahead,
But,
go ahead.
and it was the same year that the rural cemetery movement arrived in America. When you say cemetery or graveyard, what you conjure up in your mind is a rural cemetery. It was a very powerful architectural or landscape form that came through just at that time, and it involved weeping willows and winding paths and individual monuments and towering oaks and peace, and it was a Victorian form that told you that death was okay, that your mom would be waiting for you, and it was all going to be okay. That's not what this cemetery says. This cemetery says you're part of a group, and a strong group, and you're dead.
Sophie,
Your name's not there, but that cemetery, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
That cemetery over there, they changed the form. I think because theirs was built a crucial 2 years, 1 year, 2 years later, and they put the stones on the wall without putting them into a groove. And they've lost all their early records. But my surmise was there was a big argument about the form of the cemetery. And so they compromised by placing the tablets on the front of the wall so they could take them down later. And they took them all down and they put them over the vault. So they're on the ground. And they permitted individual monuments, and they planted great big trees. These trees seeded themselves, and they shouldn't be here. And because there's no place for a route to go.
I was
So,
going
you were
to
gonna
ask,
ask me,
I
so-
know that you do conduct tours periodically. Could you tell us a little
Sure.
bit about it in the
We-
event that some other members of our community would like to come down?
Oh, that's no problem. I have the cemetery open on the fourth Sunday of every month. And there's a list of dates again on the website. And there are other days of the year that we are open. We're open always on All Saints' Day, which is the day after Halloween. And we're open on the first Friday of May for our annual meeting. And we're open various other days. And we're open by appointment with a small donation. And except for you guys, of course. And we're open, but we are open the fourth Sunday of every month. And I'm very happy to have you come.
What
And
are
if
the
you
hours?
can't, from 10 to 3.
Okay. Now there's two ways. I guess one way to get in touch with you is via the website.
That's right.
Is there
That's
a
really
phone
the best
number
way.
in the event that someone wanted to call and?
The best way to do it is through the website.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, just to sum up, we're at a location of the Marble Cemetery, which is the most unusual one in the city, if
only
not
one.
the state,
It's the only one.
in which the vaults are all buried underground. And in order to memorialize the people, we have slabs put in the wall, but the bodies are not behind the
bodies are
slabs.
not
They're in the
behind the slab.
vault under the ground.
That's
so
right.
when they come in here, all they see is open field.
That's right. A green sward.
Green Sword. Well, again, thank you very much.
Thank you
My
very much.
pleasure.
Want to wrap up?
Yeah. Well, once again, we want to thank you very
My
much.
pleasure.
And I want to thank Phil White for coming out and Alice as well. So it's been very educational, and it's a great part of your history and Tuckahoe history.
That's right. Indeed.
And once again, we thank you. And hopefully you'll, your fundraising will go well, and you'll be able to restore some of the masonry work that needs to be done here in the stone. So we wish you luck with that as well.
Thanks very much. Thanks very
Great.
much.
Thank you.
Great.